As we welcome our viewers in the Gambia and around the world, this is News Review and I am Lamin Jai. I am with my colleague Jaka Sise Jete. She will be doing the papers today. But first, the headlines. The state malls slamming Yankuba Ture with 10 more additional murder charges. We have a report on that. Also, APRC militants assault journalists. We'll bring you a report on that too. But I'll go to Jaka now for her to do the papers. Jaka Sise.
Thank you. We'll first of all start with the Point newspaper. The Point newspaper, armed robbers injured 10 people at Demphal. Armed robbers Friday attacked a shop in Demphal, a small community in Central River Region, Sami district, injuring 10 people, including children. They also went away with 2 million sefa and $7,000 before arrival of security personnel at the scene. Witnesses told The Point that 8 who were armed with guns, sticks, and cutlasses attacked Papa C's shop at around 8 p.m., seriously injuring his mother, Fatu Maifba, and others. Also on The Point newspaper, 15 Upper River Region communities abandoned FGC and child marriage. Through the intervention of Tostan International, the Gambia, at least 15 communities in 5 districts of the Upper River Region on Thursday solemnly declared to abandon the deeply rooted cultural and traditional practice of female genital cutting, FGC, and child marriage. The landmark event came as a result of 3-year intensive training exercise under the Tostan Community Empowerment Program. These communities have successfully undergone training sessions covering democracy, human rights, problem-solving skills, health and hygiene, among others. The ceremony was held at Sare Yerori village in the Sandu district. The senior government officials in attendance and district chiefs. Also on The Point newspaper, intended pilgrims in Gambia depart July 27th. Imam Al-Haji Usman Jah, the Amir of Hajj, has told The Point that at least 1,700 would be pilgrims and 20 officials will be leaving Banjul to perform the Hajj in Mecca in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A total of 7 operators have been involved in the whole operations, with GIA soldering 455 pilgrims. That was it for The Point newspaper. We move on to the Standard newspaper. On the Standard newspaper, TRRC resumes with media search for more mass graves. Also, Basse National Assembly member urges Barrow to open dialogues on 3 years Jotna issue. Also, permanent secretaries redeployed, and also government spokesman not aware of talks on Jammeh's return. The government spokesman Ibrahima G. Sankare has said he is not aware and therefore not in position to comment on claims by the opposition APRC that they are in talks with government over the possible return of former President Yahya Jammeh. Over the weekend, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, the leader of the APRC, told journalists that the party has started engaging various institutions, including the government, for the return of exiled former President Yahya Jammeh to the Gambia. The negotiations are on and let people have no doubt that Yahya Jammeh will return to this country, Jatta told journalists at a press conference on Friday. Nobody has a right to deny a citizen of the Gambia his citizenship, right, even if he killed the entire Gambian population. He, Jammeh, is a Gambian and nobody can deny him the right to come back. He will come back to the Gambia, Jatta said. Also on the Standard newspaper, TRRC resumes with media search for more mass graves. The 6th session of the TRRC resumes this morning with testimonies from the Gambian media fraternity. According to sources from the commission, there is going to be testimonies dealing with an overview of the harassment suffered by the media in general during Jammeh's rule, as well as testimonies from individual journalists. Also, Basse National Assembly member urges Barrow to open dialogues on 3 years Jotna issue. The Independent National Assembly member for Basse Mohamed Magassi has urged President Adama Barrow to call a dialogue with Gambians on the burning issue of whether he should serve 3 years as promised or a full 5 years mandate by the Constitution. Honorable Magassi added that such a dialogue is necessary and is the best option to solve the seemingly simmering confrontation looming over the matter. Also, permanent secretaries redeployed, consistent with its philosophy to foster growth and promote rapid and efficient delivery of resources within all sectors of government. The Gambia government, acting on executive advisory, has redeployed 9 permanent secretaries. That was all we have for you from the newspapers. Lamin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jaka Jete, for the newspaper review there. We have a guest today in the show, in the person of Mr. Ahmad Jite. He will be speaking to us on a number of issues that are of national importance. But first, we will go to some of the stories we have. The state is contemplating slamming Yankuba Toure with 10 more murder charges and other serious offenses. These revelations were made by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice as Toure appeared at the High Court today, that's Monday, to answer to charges of murder. More in this report.
Yankuba Toure this morning appeared before the High Court presided over by Justice Ibrahim Jete to answer a charge of murder. He stands accused of causing the death of Usman Koro Sise in 1995, but he refused to enter his plea when the charge of murder was read out to him, saying he was relying on his purported constitutional immunity and would not enter a plea. Presiding, Justice Ibrahim Jete said the charges have been read out to Toure, but since he told the court that he had entered a plea of constitutional immunity, the court will enter a plea of not guilty on his behalf. But the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Tambadou, representing the state, rose up to admit that the court was indeed right to enter a plea of not guilty on Toure's behalf under the circumstances. However, he argued that Toure's refusal to enter a plea and his claim to constitutional immunity should be viewed as a challenge to the jurisdiction of the court to hear and determine the murder charges against him. He added that it was a challenge that cannot be ignored. Still addressing the court, the Justice Minister argued that the claim to constitutional immunity by Toure is ambiguous and too broad to address its specificity. He said that there is no provision of the Constitution that Toure has sought to invoke. He explained that the state did not know what type of immunity or category of offenses Toure was claiming immunity for. Interjecting, the presiding judge elucidated that Yankuba Toure has a right to remain silent and not enter a plea if he so wishes, and that the onus lies on the prosecution to prove its case as issues raised were not preliminary objections. But in his reply, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice countered that Yankuba Toure cannot arrogate to himself the power to determine immunity and that it was not for him to hold his defense. He referred the court to Section 127 of the Constitution or referral of the matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation. He disclosed that if the High Court deemed to proceed with the matter despite the challenge to its jurisdiction posed by the issue of constitutional immunity, the prosecution wishes to seek for an adjournment because it was in the process of amending the indictment to add at least 10 additional counts of murder and other serious offenses. Tambadou explained that this would be needed to allow Toure prepare his defense consistent with his right to a fair trial. He therefore asked the court to adjourn the case until after the vacation. But Abdullah Sissoho, one of Toure's lawyers, insisted that the matter should in fact be adjourned to next week for daily basis trial, as the proposed amendment was not yet before the court. He also argued that there was nothing before the court to warrant any referral of the matter to the Supreme Court. He consequently sought for bail to be granted to Toure, arguing that the status quo had changed in relations to murder and treason, querying why the matter should be adjourned for even 15 minutes. He said the slogan "New Gambia" should start with Yankuba Toure's case. After some arguments, the presiding judge adjourned the case to 15th July for ruling on these submissions. Reporting for Part1 Network News Review, this is Mamadou Justice Dabo.
Hey, what are you doing here?
I'm going to replace my AfriCell 3G SIM card.
Why use a 3G SIM card when you have a 4G phone? Replace your 3G SIM card today for the real AfriCell 4G SIM and receive 1 GB of internet data for free.
And now, a license to attack. At least that is how some people or many were saying when APRC members attacked media practitioners that attempted to cover an APRC solidarity gathering for Yankuba Toure. Today's assault on journalists was a reminder of the dark days of the APRC regime, during which many journalists have been assaulted by ruling party militants. More in this report.
Angry APRC militants on Monday assaulted the Part1 Network cameraman and a journalist with Radio France International ran for safety when stole-wielding assailants threatened him. Cameraman Modu Seidi was assaulted and manhandled as he attempted to take footages.
Let's go this way.
Wait, I should take this. I'm doing my job.
No.
It's okay. I'm doing my job. Please, let me take this. Yes.
Bro, for your safety, bro. Comply with me, huh?
The RFI journalist survived an attack as he attempted to cover the APRC Solidarity event. Speaking in an interview with the Part1 Network, RFI's Romain Sanso said,
Donc je suis allé juste couvrir la manifestation.
I am just here to cover the demonstration, and there was someone who wielded a big stone against me. It was then that I ran to the court precincts for safety. I felt scared because this was the first time I saw such a crowd advancing towards me. I just saw a crowd advancing towards me, trying to pelt me. Yes, this is the first experience of its kind since I arrived here. Gambia is a tranquil country though.
Today's assault on journalists reignites the question of whether journalists are still safe in the Gambia in due execution of their duties.
The Gaitaf Special Economic Zone is a 160-hectare mixed-use business park strategically located within the boundaries of Banjul International Airport, the Gambia. It is the only economic zone located within an airport in West Africa. Gaitaf Special Economic Zone is segmented into 4 separate zones: Commercial Zone, Industrial and Light Manufacturing, Logistics and Warehousing, Residential Zone. It is a highly secured economic zone with top-notch infrastructure, with eco-friendly buildings and beautiful landscaping. With attractive incentives and access to a pool of labor within the Gambia and the sub-region, the Gaitaf Special Economic Zone has already completed warehouses available to investors. Located less than 30 minutes away from the international seaport of Banjul, investors in the Special Economic Zone will enjoy a unique proximity to major markets around the world, including Africa, Europe, America, and Asia. For additional information, please visit www.gaitaf.com.
And now in our studios, I have Ahmad Jite. Jite is generally known when it comes to political and social issues. He's a commentator at that. He will be speaking to us on a number of issues that are of national importance. Mr. Jite, welcome to the Part1 Network.
Thank you for having me, Lamin Jai.
Yes, let me start by asking you. You started off as a journalist, and at some point you left the country and went to Canada. You are based in Canada right now, but even at that, you've been very active when it comes to what obtains back home. Tell me, what is your general impression of the state of affairs since the change came?
Well, first and foremost, let me take this opportunity to thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor, and I would like to thank the network as well in general. The general state of affairs in our country, I would say, is promising. It's, you know, we've come out of a very difficult period, and, you know, it's approaching 3 years, and what I have seen so far, I'm pleased with it. There's one thing to say, we've gotten where we want to. It's another thing to say we are getting or parting the right way to get to where we want to. And what I have seen, the way is being paved to the place that we want to go to as Gambians, and that's very.
So what are some of the tangibles that you can point to and say, okay, this is why I am saying that?
So number one, I mean, we have seen, you know, one of the things that everybody is very much concerned, or everybody is very interested in and excited about, is that freedom of expression, the freedom of association. And, you know, I mean, you know, everybody comes out, especially, you know, the social media, everybody, you know, some lambasting the president, the government, and some lambasting the opposition for saying, you know, things against the president and the government that they feel is not okay. So that's one area. The freedom of expression is definitely something that this country made, I mean, a headway in. That's number one. Number two, you just read a news review on TRRC, and that is, you know, the commission that is going on human rights. Of course, I mean, this wouldn't have been possible without the government's commitment to the promise that they have made when they were campaigning. The TRRC is on. We have the Human Rights Commission, one of the most important commissions. You know, we all have rights in the Constitution, and these rights are meant to be respected by government. And of course, responsibilities that are attached to these rights also need to be observed by those who are very, very particular and very, very interested in expressing their views within the framework of the rights. And that's number two. Number three, we have this, I mean, national broadband network that is being launched by the Ministry of Information and Infrastructure, that is Ibrahim Asila's ministry. There's a lot of things that is in this particular project that I think government is either not saying enough, or the people they are saying it to are not listening enough. But this is one of the areas that is significantly important for our country. I'm sure we'll get into these things, but just to browse. I mean, you go to the provinces, there are a lot of road constructions going on. And for any country to develop, infrastructure is the bedrock. You have to build the foundation, and that is the infrastructure. And communication is the most important. If you don't have it, there is not impossible. And you know, believe in me, Lamin Jai. Sadauda Karaba, the former president of our country, one of the founding fathers, and Yahya Jammeh together built a little over 700 kilometers of road in this country since 1965. Barrow is in 3 years, and you know, from Jawara to Jammeh, it was almost 50 years. You know, when you add the two together. In 3 years, Barrow is constructing over 400 kilometers of road. A lot of it already kick-started, and fundings are available for a lot more. So, I mean, the Jammeh Commission happened. We recovered a lot of money from Yahya Jammeh. We've seized a lot of his properties that are going to be sold or used by the government. And a lot of Gambians are employed and are making a lot of money. SFL is making a lot of money, most of it given to us by the international partners. And that money stays in. He just gave a compound to Mafuji. So there are a lot of positive things, you know, that you see, except of course if you...
You are an outspoken, proud supporter of this government, the Barrow government. But before we get to that, what I know, what much is known is that Ahmad Jite, since you left for Canada, you have always been a UDP member supporter. All of a sudden, you're no more with them. What happened? What exactly happened between you and the UDP?
So I've not always been a UDP supporter. Personally, there's something Gambians need to know about me. I was never politically savvy. I'm from a family that is very Islamic. My father was a very powerful Islamic scholar. I was more into youth work, very neutral. A lot of Gambians knew me in youth work, Red Cross Society, IOGT, NIAF, and all these things. So it was unfortunate that sometimes talents get people into something that, you do not anticipate. I joined GRTS forcefully. There's
when you say forcefully,
Jame asked me to go and work for GRTS by force. On the 4th of August in 2007, so I was a head boy of Nusrat Senior Secondary School, and usually when there are programs, Jame wants to gather students together. And my nature was a very funny person. A lot of Gambians that were my age or status in youth work would know. I always play the fool type. I would go to programs, and people will, backbite me in English, thinking I didn't even understand what they say. When all I would get in school is, aggregate 6 in all my terms and years in school. So I used to, imitate Sergio Barrow at programs. So there was a program in Kanilai. There was a laying of the foundation stone of Maths and Science Academy of Kanilai, sponsored by the Taiwanese government. I was head boy at the time at Nusrat, and I was supposed to go because Jame requested for the presence of students from high school. So I went there. So there was a poem that somebody wrote from my school about HIV/AIDS and Jame's cure. Now, I translated that very interestingly in Mandinka. Jame sent Nene Magdol to me and Mamadou Sanyang at the time saying, they should employ me immediately. So later that evening, I was invited by Jame, if I want to, but I told him, no, my interest has always been in studying communications engineering, that is telecoms, but he said, no problem, we're going to sort that out. But you can still go to GRTS to make it short. So,
But there was this thing going on that he was in fact recruiting you to be an informant.
Well, that's way later. Yes, I mean that was the basis for our problem.
And you were doing that?
No. So that was the basis of our problem. I mean, there is one thing that we also need to understand, where you come from has a lot of impact on who you become in future. Like I started, the first thing I ever had when I, was born and grew up was Quran. All around me was Quran. It was Quran that I studied before I went to school very late. So that foundation in me was so strong that, getting into things that are, anti-human and anti-religious are things I would never do. Of course, he asked me to do that, and in fact, through someone that today, I met the individual, and we had a few discussions about that. But yes, he wanted me to be, not kind of a spy. The way he said it was helping, identifying people that are anti-progress in the country.
Did you do that?
That's what I'm saying. I did not. Of course, I accepted it when I was here because I came on holidays. This was back in 2013. And when I was told about that, of course I said yes. Because I knew if I said no, what was going to happen. But when I left, I refused to. Because I spoke back to them to say...
But you left on a scholarship to go and study in Canada. A scholarship that was handed over to you by Jame.
So that, I mean, I wanted to... It's a long story. So my going to GRTS, there was a promise that was made the promise was I have to go to GRTS. Jame said, do what I want you to do. You want to study, when you have good grades, I'll sponsor you up to PhD. But I never wanted to go. But then there was a problem. I went and told my dad. But at the time, there was an individual that was taking care of me. He's late now, Lamin William Jame. He had a problem with Jame. He was working in the government. And they are big rivals. So refusing to accept that job, my father thought could put William in trouble. He was the Secretary General of the Red Cross Society. So I accepted. In fact, Abdul Toure is alive. He is today the Director General. He was the one I reported to and explained the whole matter to him. And the then Director General was Momodu Sanyang, but he was also very helpful in this case because I was going to Nusrat, I was doing pure science, and it was going to be very tough for me to go to GRTS. But what he told me is, go to school. I don't go to school in Nusrat. We have very odd weekends. We don't go to school on Fridays and Sundays. So Fridays and Sundays, I report to work. The rest of the days, I carry on with my school until I finish my school. My grades were good. Our names were mentioned. I was among the 10 best students here. GRTS announced it. And we were supposed to go get scholarship. You know, some going into medicine and the rest. So Fatul Amin Fai was the then Minister of Basic and Secondary Education. So we went there. He told me that he received an information that I have a scholarship. So I wouldn't be part of the scholarship that was offered through her. So I had to stay. So I went to GRTS. Some of my friends were very worried. They, you know, some bought forms for me. I remember Lamin BC say he's now in Turkey doing his PhD, bought me 3 forms from the university so that I could go because he thought I was wasting my time. I told him I am of course wasting time, but I had no choice. So it was until 2010, like April or so, I went to Kanila again because usually I was the correspondent when it comes to people going to work in Kanila in GRTS. So I went there and I was, you know, fortunate this time. Jame remember. He said, look, did you finish school? I said, yes, I did. He said, okay. Can you go look for school and we'll send you. But then the scholarship that I was offered was Gambia government scholarship, I was told. The Secretary General, you know, today, Ibrahim Cisse, was the Director of Office of Policy Analysis at the Office of the President. He was subsequently moved to Secretary to Cabinet. He was one of those guys that assisted. And there's a permanent secretary, Sehu Gassama, who was also involved, Louis Moses Gomez. All of them are alive today. So I got the scholarship. I was asked to look for school anywhere. I tried Oxford University doesn't accept people from Gambia. Your education system, grade 12 is not enough. So I couldn't. So I just randomly, you know, applied everywhere and got Canada. That was how I left, and the package was given to me.
You were very grateful to Jame for doing this for you.
I mean, why not? I was, of course, grateful. But then the issue was, I felt, of course, at the time, my time was really wasted. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Even as the scholarship was scrapped?
Well, I mean, the scrapping of the scholarship was one thing. I picked up a scholarship immediately. In fact, less than 4 months after my scholarship was scrapped. And the way in which it was made me very angry. And
you know, a lot of people wailed and, you know, were shocked. In fact, when the Janneh Commission came and your name was mentioned as one of those people who were sponsored by former President Jame. What did you make of that when you saw your name everywhere? Oh, well, this loudmouth, and here he is. His name is being...
Well, you know, I mean, so here is the thing. When you receive scholarship, you don't know where the money comes from. The Ministry of Basic and Higher Education is sponsoring a lot of students in university. But where that money is coming from to the university, you have no idea. Certainly, the money goes to your university. That's all that happens. They send money to university and university gives you receipt and say you have paid. So when that is paid, all I do is get that receipt and send it back to the Office of the Secretary General here. And when, you know, the way we do it is I would register for my 10 classes for a year. and they know that now I will get the bill, and I get that bill stamped and sealed in an envelope and DHL it to Banjul. That's all you do. So where the money comes from, I mean, you have no idea. It's just like the standard way of, supporting students in Taiwan. Well, Taiwan was a government-to-government scholarship. Those governments apply. But when they send you, you don't know where the money comes from. You have the letter that you have a scholarship. But where the money comes from, you don't know. So when the whole thing came up again, one thing I would tell, and I made of that particular thing, is that the money that came from Gambian taxpayers' money to sponsor me was never a wrong thing. I'm a Gambian. I have qualifications to be sponsored. Let anybody come and say, I do not have the qualification to be sponsored. So, and what they've sent me for, and that is read and produce results and develop yourself, intellectually, that I have achieved. One thing though that the government failed in doing was to bond me. I am one of those that was never bonded. So I do not have to come back to this country to serve the country because they never bonded me for whatever reason best known to them. But I believe someday my conscience, would force me to come and work for the country.
Yes, so and after the political death of former President Jammeh, we saw Ahmad Jite now part and parcel of the new political boss, this coalition, consortium of political parties, headed by President Barrow, now President Barrow. But then what we knew was that Ahmad Jite was more UDP sympathizer than any other political party in this country. You were very proud of this party, its leader, and all of a sudden December came, the Congress, and you came out and said some very serious things about the party, and that marked your severance, the severance of your ties with UDP. Tell me about that.
So first things first. I wasn't in UDP as early as you think I have been. I worked with Fatu. One of the things that brought me out to stand against Jammeh was because I felt I was forced to do two things against my will as a citizen. Number one, Jammeh asked me to go and work for GRTS. I didn't want to. I was never interested in being a journalist, to let you know. My interest has always been with machines and mathematics in particular. I went to GRTS against my will, but I ended up loving the media. Two, government of Yahya Jammeh asking me to be a surveillance officer or an intel officer or a spy, any name you give it. And I never wanted it. And that cost me my scholarship. It also cost me my right to come to my country and be with my family and go back to anywhere I want to. So when these two things happened, I felt, it was painful because, Jammeh is young. So when this thing happened, the first thing I thought about, oh my God, I will not be in the Gambia for the next 20 years. But I felt that as a human being, one thing I want to see is, no matter how long it's going to take, I would love, after me, no one become a victim like myself. And a victim, in this case, I mean, no one that is a citizen will be forced to take a job that you are not interested in. It's every citizen's right to accept or decline an offer of a job in government. So I felt that it happened to me twice, and I'm not going to accept it. And Allah is my witness, it was on that premises that I say I'm going to talk. I've started writing on Facebook. Samsidin Fati was on Fatu Radio, so he brought me to Fatu Radio, and then I would, give the news and all of that. So on Fatu Network, since 2013, Fabu Sane and Lamin Tunkara were following me. They wanted me to join UDP. But then my position at the time was the entertainer-in-chief. I had a program on Fatu Network called Alangata. It was a very famous program in the diaspora. I entertain and, you know, we call it edutainment. And we've all become one. And it was a very, very famous program. When they approached me, I told them I don't want to be in any party because Gambian situation is very, very sensitive. You join one, there is always a problem. So they followed me for 2 good years.
And then
but,
you joined?
No, I mean, yes. But at some point, like every single party that has a program, I would go there. PPP had a program. They invited me. Duga will have a program. Sometimes I'll be the chief fundraiser. In fact, GD, I forgot it, Gambia Democracy Fund, GDF. One of GDF. I was the chief fundraiser for them. I did a lot of fundraising for them. So I did all of this, and of course at some point, you know, UDP, some guys in the party said I was a member of the APRC, which I've never voted in my life. I've never even had a voter's card. Muhammad Ali Unja is there, you go and ask in the records. I was never interested in politics. Those circumstances forced me to go to GRTS, and Jame asked Mamadou Sanyan to deploy me to post me at State House. That was why I went to State House. So, you know, in 2015, during the first Njagachoy problem, that was when I accepted UDP and joined in the diaspora. And that was how things started. I've now become UDP instead of being there as a general person. And then, of course, like you've said,
when you joined the party, what were your expectations? What were you really looking forward to?
From outside, I mean, we will all have to accept that this is a party that really fought very hard, to be frank. It's a party that worked very, very hard, and it fought very hard against Yahya Jammeh, and a lot of injustices were meted against the party. And I believe, my belief was, with the type of constitution it has, this is a party that I believe will do a lot better when it comes to power. And of course, a lot of Gambians too associated with the party. So I was looking forward to a really democratic entity where expressions of views, you know, divergence of opinions and choices of leadership will be accepted and tolerated.
But at some point, your expectations, hopes were dashed.
Well, I mean, yes, at some point. But then again, this is nature of human beings.
What was it really about? Was it because of the problems that were happening between UDP and President Barrow? You know, because at some point that was what happened. The relationship started. So
people are getting this wrong. It has never been a problem between UDP and President Barrow. President Barrow was a part of UDP. When you say UDP, you are talking about President Barrow as well, because he has always been a part of UDP. So there was no such thing as problems between President Barrow and UDP.
I think clearly there was. No, at the Congress, what happened at the Congress was that some people who work for President Barrow were not even allowed to come to the Congress.
So again,
that was really a problem.
But again, until I don't even know if Barrow left UDP or not.
I think he resigned.
Well, that was...
And there was a letter, a resignation letter to that effect.
He has resigned, and the UDP leader stood on platform several times to say Barrow has been, and Barrow is UDP. You, as a journalist, must have known that. You've heard that severally, that UDP always talks about Barrow being UDP. And in fact, the famous saying, Barrow is our Barrow, is from the UDP leader. So let me just quickly get into this. I don't want to kind of talk much about UDP, Adama Barrow. There's a lot that happened in this country. This country, the Gambia, that Gambian people fought to liberate, has a lot going on. Much bigger than Adama Barrow, much bigger than Adama Barrow's government, much bigger than Ousainou Darboe, much bigger than O.J. Jallow, much bigger than I think
I will disagree with you on that, because these are the people that we entrust with the management of our affairs. So you cannot say that they are not important.
No, I'm not saying they are not important.
Yes.
There's difference between being important and something being more important than you. Gambia and its affairs
but
are more
Gambia
important.
is run by people.
Yeah, but
these are the people who are running Gambia.
That does not negate.
That puts them at the very heart of the conversation.
That does not negate. That does not negate the fact that Gambia is more important than any of them. Adama Barrow, Ousainou, OJ, Halifa. Gambia as a country of 2-point-something million people is more important than all of them. But
you said something on the UDP at the Congress. Let me read it to you. I'll quote you on this. You said, in every sense of the word, I consider this UDP gathering as more of a divisive gathering than a unifying one.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know,
said that.
Yes, I said it. And that is because what happened there, I believe UDP did not go for Congress. That was my belief, because I knew, as a member at the time, there were things going on. A lot of people that took position at that Congress were pre-discussed and were already ready-made before they came to Congress. But I would beg and appeal to you once again.
When you say divisive, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, there was a statement that was made by the party leader where he said, you know, nobody would deny that Barrow is the leader of the country, but nobody will also deny that I'm the leader of the UDP. That was followed by a statement that we felt, particularly me, that was an attack on a section of UDP that was not on perhaps the side that says Ousainou Darboe should be president come 2021. And you know, the problem actually I felt started when, again, my belief, I told you, of course, we have to tolerate and accept divergence of opinions and choice for a leader or choice of a leader. In a party, you can have 5 people and you have disagreements. I would love you and he would want you to be a leader.
There were some people who said you were, in essence, trying to push the agenda of the President Barrow.
Well,
because clearly President Barrow was interested in being the leader of this party.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what happened. You know, a lot of people in UDP are smart people, very smart. And smart people think ahead. And when they think ahead, they have objectives ahead. And they start discussing about those objectives today. There were discussions everywhere. That was not specific to me, and it was not just me. People, every party wants to take over government after the transitional government. This is a coalition government. But every party wants it, you know, like UDP. So we want a full-fledged UDP government when coalition term ends. But who leads the UDP in that case? These are discussed. Smart people discuss these things. It's normal and it's fine everywhere. There are people that say Ousainou should be a leader of the party. He should be the flag bearer. I'm talking to you about what I was privy to. And some said it would be easy to retain Barrow in power than to bring Ousainou, because you know, a lot of people use this analogy of you have a thick forest, you cut the trees, you burn the, you know, the
so
sticks.
Out of these two options, out of these two possibilities, what do you think?
I believe Barrow should be kept because it's easier. We have the advantage of incumbency. And number 2, Barrow is young and people are advocating for young people in office. So Barrow is younger than Dabo. Barrow has the advantage of incumbency. So I believe it's easier to retain Barrow in office, and that's my belief, than to bring Dabo afresh. And this, I think, should not have been a problem. So that is where I was called a hypocrite. And, you know, it's a right for everybody.
You were called a hypocrite, but all this emanated from that the Congress. And your withering views of Dabo went as far as you saying, and I quote you, I am not in any way saying that Usainu Dabo at any point in his speech mentioned that he wants to be the flag bearer. Mm-hmm. But he clearly demonstrated in his speech that he is not ready to be challenged when it comes to leadership. And
that's the fact. That's what I view. That's my
So
view.
you think Dabo is not ready to be challenged when it comes to
not
leadership
at all.
of UDP?
Not at all. Okay, so there's one thing I would love to again appeal to you for. I mean, the country, Gambia is bigger than Barrow, Dabo. And at some point, there are a lot of things, you know, going on. And what we focus on is just something I believe is not going to take this country anywhere for now. Let's wait about this Barrow, Dabo in 20.
And again, I'll insist because I think this is important.
So yeah, I mean, these are my views. And you know, there are people that feel Dabo is never the right person. Khalifa is. There are people that feel Khalifa is never the right person. OJ is. There are people that feel OJ is never. Mama Kanda is. I am out of almost 1 million people that have their choices of leaders for presidency. That's not exclusive to me. I felt Dabo is not the one that we should put forward for 2021, and that should be okay. One thing though that I have always mentioned is it's okay to have divergent opinions. But what's important is when I choose Barrow, you choose Dabo, he chooses Usainu, just like what happened in Barrow's case. Let's go to UDP's Congress. When UDP picks a flag bearer and Jita said no, that is different than Adama Barrow, there Jita has a problem. But until we get to Congress and we legally and constitutionally, I mean UDP's constitution, pick a flag bearer that is going to be the leader, I have a right to choose Yanks Dabo as my presidential candidate because he's a bona fide member of UDP. I have the right to pick Lamin Tunkar. I have the right to say I want Talib Bensouda to be president of 2021 on UDP ticket. Now, when people that UDP chose, that is our regional leaders, go to Congress and they pick a flag bearer duly, if I say I'm not in for that person, then I have a problem. But we've not reached there. What's wrong with me saying I want Adama Barrow to remain, to be a flag bearer? Constitutionally, UDP's constitution has no problems with that. So when you call me a fake UDP, a non-UDP, you are not following the democratic principles of UDP. And what you are doing is division. What you are doing is intolerance.
So
and that is unacceptable.
At some point,
to me,
you got frustrated.
Not frustrated.
It has been months since you left UDP. Mm-hmm. You are no longer with them, and you've gone on to join President Adama Barrow's boss, his political boss. You went on to grow very close to him. I want you to give me your assessment of him as president.
So I've always This is again one thing
as
we
president.
have to. So Barrow and I came a long way, and this is true UDP. Before even we went on joining the coalition and went to coalition Congress and picked Barrow, UDP picked Barrow. I've never met him. I never met him at the time, but I was the first UDP member to put on social media that Barrow is our leader and Barrow is our president. And in this case, I mean when the coalition were pushing and pulling, UDP picked a candidate and he's the one I supported. and I continue to support. Now, when we, like UDP, we took government and as a coalition, and we are going within UDP, I am with the view that Barrow should stay and be given the chance to again rerun on UDP ticket. Now, like I said, this should be a normal thing anywhere, because that's what the Constitution doesn't have a problem with you having a choice of leader. Now, when you disagree with me, I am on Barrow, and on the basis of that, I mean,
what do you make of his performance as one of his leg spirals?
Well, again, I see Adam Barrow as a very patient person, a very genuine and very, very trustworthy individual. And even his enemies in UDP in history, if there is any enemy, because I feel politics has to be rivalry, but no enmity.
But there are a lot of people who would reject that, submission of yours, that he is very genuine. Here is a man who promised that I am going to stay for just 3 years and then step aside. And now here he is. He is telling us that, oh, I am in, and situation has changed, so I need to stay and complete some work that I start. Okay. So how genuine is such a person? Someone who would say this, but tomorrow he would come and then and then flip.
What situations have changed? Now, Lamin Jai, we have to be realistic, and I always want us to understand and be genuine about things. Barrow and all other partners in this coalition agreed to have a government for 3 years. Now, this agreement, you must understand, was amongst political parties. And that's not all the political parties. It's among the 7+1 Aissatou Toure. We have other political parties,
and these are
that
the
did
people
not
who went on
subscribe. Yes. But then something happened, whether deliberately or accidentally, and that is what they agreed on is in contravention with the Constitution. And you should know, just like the Quran, to say God is two is completely, I mean, when you say that, you are completely out of the questions of a Muslim. No, I mean,
there is nothing in the Constitution that say, or that makes it a crime for President Barrow to step aside after 3 years.
Well,
so this.
Well, why are you storing about
hiding behind?
Why are you stopping? The agreement never said the president should step down and stop there, and that is the hypocrisy of those that are, talking about this stepping down in 3 years. The agreement said the president should step down in 3 years, yes, and elections
be called.
Now, you can step down in 3 years, there is no problem, but you cannot call elections. Now, what do? You want to accept half and leave half? Why are we not talking about calling the elections if you ask the president to step down in 3 years? We have to stop being, and that is the problem with all this argument. We have to call elections.
Don't you think if the coalition was intact, they could just go back to the drawing board and fix that part that you are talking about?
I mean, I think whether coalition fix it or not, the Constitution is supreme. If you want,
like I said, it is never a crime in the Constitution that Barrow cannot step down after 3 years.
Now
the Constitution says 5 years, but it never said that Barrow cannot step down after 3 years.
Yes, but what you are leaving behind is what I don't want you to leave behind. Let Barrow step down 3 years, yes, and let's go to elections. Don't cut into half the agreement. Complete it. That is what every genuine person should do. Barrow step down, let's go to elections. Okay, we cannot hold elections. But then what is the essence of Barrow stepping down?
The point that you are raising, President Barrow never raised this point. All he would tell people is that he started some projects and he would want to complete this project. These are the reasons that he would, submit. Well, that is why he wants to stay
if Barrow
for 5 years.
If Barrow wants, let him say he wants to go to planet Pluto before the 5 years ends, and you know the traffic to planet Pluto is not going to be completed before the 5 years. It's not enough to complete the travel. No, wait, let me finish. You know, the flight to planet Pluto will not be completed in 3 years, so let him finish. We don't care about what Barrow said. What we are saying is, election cannot happen, and the constitution is what we care about. This is the supreme book.
So Jite,
yes.
You see someone who would come to you, promise you something, and then tomorrow he changes his mind as someone who is genuine.
Okay, no. Now again, let's look at a promise. In the laws of the Gambia, you should not give your daughter's hand in marriage under the age of 17, 18. You promise someone very nice, that you are a nice man. I would give you my daughter. You're a very nice, you know, your character is amazing. Come, I'll give you my daughter. But your daughter lives with her mom in the US. You've not been, you know, attentive about how old she is. Now, after you have promised somebody, the person came with kola nut to your house with the people, with the family that, you know, with his family to ask for your daughter's hands in marriage, as you've promised the individual. But he called to consult with your wife, and your wife reminded you, honey, your daughter is just 14 years old. But the laws of the Gambia and the laws of the US says it's illegal and it's punishable by law to give your daughter's hands in marriage. Wait, now, when you get to that person that you promised to say, look, I promise you that my daughter, I should give her hands to you in marriage, but instead of 18, she is 13 or she is 14, and under law it's punishable. It's not allowed to give my child hand. Would you call that? No, I'm asking you, will you call that individual not genuine because he called off the marriage? So tell me. So no.
Here's the thing, and I will answer that. You know, that is this word illegal.
Yes.
That is why I would call that person genuine, because probably he didn't do enough groundwork to know whether this is legal or illegal. But here, in the case of President Barrow, there is nothing like illegal.
I think you are misunderstanding. You don't understand. The same way it is illegal that you mentioned is the same way it is illegal for a presidential election to hold in 3 years. It is held in every 5 years. It is illegal to conduct an election that is presidential in every 5 years. And that is the point you are not talking. Again, I told you, don't just talk about,
the president at any point in his or her term can resign. And elections be called within 3 months, within 90 days. So it's quite possible. This is not something that should be very difficult, Ahmad. I think it's just unfortunate that the president would say one thing and tomorrow he would flip.
No, I mean, again, you know, you are taking a long path to this. Do not pick one part of the agreement and leave the other. It doesn't make sense. Now, we're all equal in this, and we should be genuine and honest to each other. When you believe that presidents will resign, and I believe that elections cannot happen, so he cannot resign, let's go back to the laws of our country. We are always, our opinions are always divergent. So what keeps us together as a country, or what keeps every single society together, is a set of rules and principles. And in our case, the Constitution is this rule that we all agree to uphold. And it says you cannot hold elections. And because we cannot hold elections, the agreement is not in line with the Constitution. Let the president finish his 5 years. Let's go back to polls. And again, it will cost a lot more money. It's going to be more expensive to go to elections than to keep the president in office. Why would we go a route that is so expensive and is so, very time costly? Because to change, if you want to go to elections, you have to change that entrenched clause in the Constitution. Entrenched clauses are changed only through referendum. So IEC have to conduct an election, Sensitization go for campaigns, just like presidential elections. And we have to spend tens and 20s and 30s of millions, and then we vote. We don't even know if we will win for that particular part to change or not. If we lose it,